Something shifted the moment Shaun Wallace spoke those words. Not dramatically. Not with raised voices or studio lights flaring. Just a quiet, almost casual admission that somehow landed heavier than any dramatic chase-round confrontation ever could. The Dark Destroyer, the man who has spent years staring down contestants with that unreadable intensity, the figure who feels almost mythic on afternoon television, suddenly sounded human in a way that caught many viewers off guard. On a podcast conversation that found its way into the wider conversation among ITV audiences, Shaun revealed that some of his former partners are still miffed with him. Not for the usual reasons people hold onto old relationships, but because he refused to write them into his autobiography. He never mentioned any of his past relationships in the book. Not once. And when those women asked why, his answer was simple, almost gentle in its firmness. It wasn't that kind of story. If someone wanted sex, drugs, and rock and roll, they should look elsewhere. What happens between two people, he insisted, should remain private. There is something quietly powerful in that stance. In an age where so many public figures treat their personal histories like content to be packaged and sold, Shaun's refusal feels almost radical. Viewers who have watched him for years on The Chase know the on-screen version well. The sharp intellect, the dry humor, the ability to dismantle a contestant's confidence with a single raised eyebrow. That version rarely lets the curtain slip. So when even a small corner of the real man appears, it registers. Many people watching or reading about the exchange seem to feel a strange mix of curiosity and respect at the same time. Some audiences began wondering what it costs a person to keep that kind of boundary for so long. Others found themselves reflecting on the women still carrying a quiet sense of being written out of the official story. There is a tenderness in the word miffed. It is not bitter. It is not vengeful. It is the soft disappointment of people who shared part of a life and then watched that chapter remain closed on the page. Shaun himself acknowledged that he has stayed friends with some of them. The relationships did not end in silence. They simply stayed outside the public record. That detail matters. It suggests a man who can separate affection from exposure. In the studio atmosphere of The Chase, everything is performance, competition, timing. Off-screen, it seems, Shaun has chosen a different rhythm. The privacy is not coldness. It is deliberate. When asked whether keeping his private life private was a conscious choice, his answer was clear. Yes. His life is his. He does not inquire into other people's, and he does not invite them into his. For many longtime viewers, that consistency feels rare. Celebrity culture often rewards oversharing. The more intimate the detail, the more the algorithm rewards it. Yet here is a familiar face from daytime television quietly rejecting the bargain. The result is that even a small revelation carries unusual weight. People online and in living rooms across the country seem to pause over it. Not because the details were scandalous, but because they were not. The absence of drama became the story. There is also something almost cinematic in the contrast. The same man who can make a contestant's palms sweat under studio lights is the same man who will not trade old loves for a few extra pages of memoir. That tension between public intensity and private restraint is what keeps drawing people back to the conversation. It invites a different kind of curiosity. Not the hunger for gossip, but the quieter question of what it means to protect the parts of a life that never belonged to the audience in the first place. Some viewers found themselves thinking about their own old relationships and the stories they choose to tell or leave untold. Others simply appreciated the reminder that even familiar television figures are allowed to remain partially unknown. In a media landscape that often feels determined to know everything, Shaun's gentle refusal lands like a small act of dignity. And perhaps that is why the moment continues to linger. Not because of any dramatic confession or heated exchange, but because of the space he insisted on keeping. Between the words, between the questions, between the public persona and the private man, something unspoken remained intact. Many people who heard or read about the conversation seemed to recognize the value in that. Maybe what stayed with viewers was not simply the fact that some ex-girlfriends are still miffed. It was the quiet principle underneath, that some stories do not need to be told in order to have mattered. That privacy can be a form of respect rather than secrecy. And that even on the brightest stages of British television, a person is still allowed to decide which chapters stay closed. What did you feel when you first heard about it? Did the revelation change the way you see the man who has spent so many years opposite Bradley Walsh? Or did it simply confirm something you already suspected about the distance he keeps? I would genuinely love to know what you noticed, what you felt, and whether the moment stayed with you the way it seems to have stayed with so many others.